Hoi, we just received a massive leak as well as some important bug fixes for the current patch, so we're going to talk about both as well as some other bugs. This screenshot was posted by Reddit user OMG Really. This is a PlayStation Store screenshot with New World Aeternum on it. Now, I cannot 100% validate that this is real. This could technically be a very good fake, but considering I've never seen that key art before, and we have New World Aeternum mentioned here when it was very recently mentioned in job listings, I believe it's very likely that this is actually real and somehow PlayStation accidentally leaked this early, which I'm assuming is probably not a New World mistake, but rather a PlayStation mistake. This happens quite frequently with console releases. This is of course very interesting because it seems like we are actually getting that rebranding to New World Aeternum. Some people were saying that would not be the case because we had that trailer, which was New World Aeternum Awaits. But like I already said, I think this rebranding makes a lot of sense. On one hand, it indicates some sort of fresh start, and on the other hand, it also makes the game more searchable. So to me, this has a lot of logic behind it. A huge question is if this will be a rebrand that only affects the consoles, or if this will be for New World on PC as well. I really hope that it's for both, because otherwise I would be worried that it would also mean that there's no crossplay, because it would be crossplay between two different games if they're not both branded as New World Aeternum. It is also possible that New World Aeternum will be some sort of bundle or an expansion of types. Maybe it'll just be a free expansion for people who already bought Rise of the Angry Earth. But overall, we can speculate into many directions here. What we know so far is that it was listed on the PlayStation Store. I very strongly believe that this will make an Xbox release very likely as well. I don't believe they will exclusively do PlayStation, just based on the fact that they're announcing on the first day, not tied to any specific console, and because it just wouldn't make sense to make all that work in order to just release on one console when technologically they're very similar. So I think both consoles are coming. Question is if it's actually coming sooner than I thought, because I expected that the console release was still a bit away. I thought that would be happening with Season 7, because I thought that they probably need some more time to prepare that beforehand, iron out some bugs, as we saw with the last patch, and then would throw out the announcement but do the release itself later. Give people some time to prepare, essentially. But considering it's already leaked on the store for a brief moment now, it makes it seem more likely that this is already ready to be launched and will be announced and launched on the same day, which would be crazy. It also would be somewhat surprising in the context of the PC version, which is currently still quite a fair bit away from the next season. So yeah, maybe this is just some super early weird leak. Maybe if this was actually clickable and you could actually open this on your console, it would actually just lead you to a release date further down the line. It's not actually working at all, so that's not the case. But either way, a very interesting situation. We will learn more about that tomorrow, or later today rather. If you want to get all the details and you're new to New World, then consider subscribing and clicking the bell, because I will keep you updated for sure. And on that note, there's also another update. There is a small maintenance, or was a small maintenance, for some important fixes to the current patch. The first one here is fixed an issue that caused more stamina to drain when dodging after a block or aiming an ability. So this affects the worst offenders, I would say, of this bug, the ones that would consistently cause people to lose stamina where they shouldn't. However, this does not affect all instances. According to Zardos, for example, if you use a heavy attack and then you dodge and do a weapon swap at the same time, you will still lose all of your stamina. So there's still some cases where somehow this is happening. Compared to before, they're more fringe cases, so I would expect to see a fix for that after the weekend. Healing Breeze, the ring perk that gives you a heal over time after healing, has been nerfed and changed. First of all, the base power of the healing per second was reduced from 20% to 14%. Along with that, there was an issue that allowed it to stack 3 times and refresh its duration when stacked. That was fixed. And most importantly, they adjusted the ability to only trigger off healing from abilities. That means things like shirking heals, healthy toast and so on should no longer count, making it a very niche perk once again, especially with the reduced value. They say they will continue to review these adjustments in a future release and make additional balance changes if necessary. I think it's overall reasonable that this perk was nerfed simply because I don't think it was ever intended to be used the way it is being used right now, just providing a lot of extra healing in builds that are not meant for healing overall. You can just proc that with a single piece of shirking heals. So yeah, the fix here seems fine to me. I'm not sure if the decrease in healing value on top of that was necessary, to be honest, because on a life staff it doesn't scale particularly well, for example, by itself. In addition to that, there were also some quest progression fixes for the quests that you can see here. Yesterday I told you I wanted to talk about the bugs that were introduced with this patch, and while one of the most important bugs is partially fixed now, I figured it's still a good place to talk about the other ones as well, because there were quite a few. The first thing that happened is that the whole patch file size issue returned, with patches just being not really compressed the right way on Steam and being significantly larger than they should be, taking forever to download, which is always very frustrating, especially because once you start that download, it seems like there's no way to revert that and try again later when the patch is maybe more compressed. This has always been a major frustration factor for PC players, but I feel like it's going to be even more annoying for console players, which may also run into issues with storage while trying to download the patches and so on. I'm not entirely sure about that, but as far as I understand it, there are more problems with those kinds of things on console, though maybe the patches are handled differently from Steam there in the first place, so it may not matter as much as I think it does. Another bug that made its return was the trading post and storage bug. This means that if you're trying to sell things on the trading post, you currently cannot sell out of your storage. You need to put things into your inventory from your storage to be able to sell them. On top of that, in some cases, these bugs are even weirder. Someone demonstrated that on Reddit. I'm not entirely sure how that worked, but they were able to put items into the inventory and still have those items not show up on the trading post in order to be able to sell them. So just weird things all around with the trading posts. Obviously very frustrating whenever that happens. Some people were also reporting invasions being bugged, also once again with a bug that we have had on launch, where brutes were entering into the inner base without the gates being destroyed beforehand. This used to be a common problem in invasions, where certain mobs would just be able to walk through the door while the door was there. So it looks like we're really doing a bit of a trip down memory lane with some of the bugs that were introduced. Then, as I mentioned, we had the stamina bug that drained all of your stamina on certain moves. That is still somewhat present now, just fixed partially. And last but not least, there is the bug with the gear score scaling, where you can actively reduce your gear score in order to get more mitigation. Now, for this bug, I will say that it's not new at all. It actually was introduced, I think, almost a year ago at this point, when they changed how the whole gear score scaling system worked overall. It was around the same time when we couldn't do tests without armor anymore, because they started to skew the results because every value was messed up. This has recently been brought into the spotlight because Micro talked about it, made a video about it. So a lot more people are aware of it and using it, but it has been around for a very long time. Now, what you need to be aware of with this trick, method, bug, whatever you want to call it, is that it is extremely limited in application. It's not exclusively for wars or anything. That's not correct, because you can technically somewhat do it in OPR as well, but there are a lot of trade-offs. Most damage dealing classes won't be using this in any capacity. It's primarily the full tanky tanks and healers that can consider utilizing it in some way. But even for them, it comes with trade-offs such as losing out on perks or losing out on attributes. So it's a very fine balance, I would say. As such, I can see why AGS doesn't put a super high amount of urgency on this, though I think it should be addressed in the long term. Depending on how things develop, I might discuss that more in a separate video. If you're interested in that or anything New World related, especially with all the news that we're getting tomorrow, then consider subscribing and clicking the bell to get notified. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to support me further, then you can do so on Patreon. In return for that, you'll also get early trading tips. Thanks to all of my patrons who already do exactly that, and thank you for watching. Sloth, out.